He is truly the most elusive big animal there is. Hunting Mr. Whitetail requires lots of skill, the instinct of a predator, and more than anything, lots of luck. Big whitetail bucks are wiser than any other wild game species. It was once said, when this world comes to an end, two species would probably remain: the wile E. coyote and big whitetail bucks. Any hunter that enters the home turf of a big buck must understand the nature of this animal and do his homework. A whitetail's sense of smell, his hearing, and eyesight are far greater than the hunter's. Mature bucks that are in an age class older than 3 years seem to possess a sixth sense. His ability to elude danger in an unpredictable way has been experienced by every hunter. I guess it is the challenge that brings millions of enthusiasts to the forest and fields each year, hoping to successfully outwit the white-tailed deer. One thing is for sure, hunting this animal leads to a tremendous addiction for a great sport. The Night and Hail team from western Kentucky are part of the large family of avid whitetail hunters. These guys log countless hours trying to figure out whitetail bucks. They are dedicated archery, black powder, and gun deer hunters. Plus, they try to capture every spectacular part of the season on video to share with other hunters. 1996 was a challenging year for this team. They endured foul weather and other elements that affect the hunt, like a tremendous mass crop, which contributed to inconsistent deer movement. When the season came to a close, with 6 dates to its credit, the Night and Hail cameras had captured every heart-stopping moment of their second ultimate whitetail season. Yes, it is an incurable addiction.
We have seen rattling, grunting,
mess ups,
every kind of hunt you can think of. And Chuck, being on the camera, you spent a lot of hours with a lot of different people out there, didn't you?
I did, and you did too. We spent a lot of days in the trees. I kind of felt like a squirrel.
I understand after about 100 days of what all we went through, if a man hadn't seen every situation there is to be seen, I don't know what it's going to take.
You know, this encountered several different states, and you got a chance to see what a whitetail was in Texas versus Tennessee, Kentucky, and Mississippi.
Absolutely. By the way, welcome to our second volume of the Ultimate Whitetail season. We have just completed the season. We've got some fantastic hunts to share with you. Chuck, tell us a little bit about something that's coming up on this video.
Well, you know, that people always think that the highlights of the video are the successful hunts, which they are, but some of the neat things that we had happen this year were the unsuccessful stuff. You know, the nature of a whitetail deer, he's one of the hardest animals there is to pursue, and it's just hard to be successful every time. But we, like Harold mentioned earlier, we went to Texas and we spent 5 days out there rattling and grunting deer in. That's exciting. When you see deer run into that camera like that, we actually got deer coming to rattle and grunting this year here in Kentucky in the east, and that's something people don't see a whole lot of. But
I think your mess-ups, Chuck, teach you more a lot of times than your successful hunts.
They really do.
Well, you're talking about the mess-ups now. We carried probably 22 or 23 different people this year hunting, trying to film the hunt, and I think we get 9 successful hunts out of it. And really, when you consider trying to film, 9's not real bad out of 22. But you know what? When you get that deer up there, everything has got to be totally right.
Especially with a bow.
Oh yeah, especially with a bow. But you know what? It's amazing how when you do get deer up to the camera, everything's exactly right. The guy has still got to squeeze the trigger. He's got to pull the bow back and shoot the arrow.
And then you got to find him.
and then you got to find him. So, you know, we left a lot of things hanging out there, and I know you have put a segment together of a lot of the unsuccessful hunts and had great footage leading up to it. And to me, just like the Texas hunt, that's one of the most exciting part about this video, because some of these hunts were so short, boom, it would happen. You don't get a lot of build up into it, but when I saw those deer coming to the rattling in Texas, and the grunting, it spurred me on to do a lot more, and I'm in the business to sell it, and it got me going a lot more. And you know what, towards the end of the season, I used the call a lot more. I didn't do as much rattling as did calling. And there's one thing about it is, if you don't participate in the sport, it ain't gonna happen, is it?
No, it's not gonna happen. It's a good thing I didn't have a gun mounted on that camera in Texas. I'd have helped you boys out.
Well, you know what? It was kind of bad when you stop and think that probably the biggest class buck we saw on that particular hunt, it had nothing to do with the property. The big bucks were there, but we were looking at 125 to 135 inch deer, and we just didn't feel comfortable with a rifle taking those kind of deer. But we got a tremendous hunt out of it as far as experience of rattling deer. You know, I've always heard about rattling in Texas was different from anywhere else, and I really believe it is. But that doesn't mean it can't be successful here, because you had a good rattling sequence with Rob Keck, didn't you?
Rob Keck and I went out the day before muzzleloader season came in, which was in pre-rut stage here. And to me, that time of year, if you see a buck in the woods, if you can see a whitetail buck, he's on a roam running scrape lines, you grunt to him, 90 times out of 100, he's going to come to you.
You know, y'all capture some good grunting sounds too.
We really did. Good live deer grunts, and that's, people can listen to that and they can understand what kind of sounds they need to put into their call to reproduce sounds of bucks grunting when they're chasing does.
Well, I'll tell you another segment we're going to use today in this thing. We're going to give some tips on some of the things that, and it's kind of interesting when you said, when you asked me, said, what tip do you want to give? And then you asked Harold, and you put, well, all three of us come up with tips. We all had different ideas about what made a hunt successful, and to me, that's going to be an interesting part of this thing, because my tip's no more important than anybody else's, but it sure is important, and I'm going to be interested in seeing all y'all's tips on that.
Well, you know, that's what's so neat about us involving bunches of different people in the video. Like you said, we hunted with 20 different people. Everybody's got their own techniques for hunting.
I tell you what, they taught me a lot this year too, just watching them.
That's right. Nobody's a perfectionist. None of us are experts. You learn something every time you go to the field.
Well, boys, I tell you what, we have sat here and introduced this thing. Now, this is the second volume of the Ultimate Whitetail series. It's done. We're getting ready for the third volume of the turkey series. I'm excited about that, but I hadn't gotten over the deer season yet, and I expect all during the deer season I'm going to be thinking about what we're going to be having, turkey season, what we're going to have to be doing for this coming deer season.
You're looking for sheds right now.
I'm looking for sheds right now, and you know, speaking of that, before we give away too many tips here about the upcoming video, we have got some great footage coming up here, and what do you say that we get into it before we give it all away, sitting right here? Well, this clover field has got a ton of deer sign in it. I've already been out here a couple of times this year looking. I've seen some real good bucks in velvet. I know they're using this field, and this is the third field that we put out with this Mega Bucks clover. 2 of them they're heavily using now. In order to hunt this field, and this is important about early season scouting, if you get to where the deer are, you're going to get in the kitchen, and this is the kitchen right now. This is not the rut. This is early season. They're coming to the food sources. The problem with this field is you've got to wait till you've got a northeast wind. Most of your deer are going to come from this direction back here. You've got to have the wind in your favor to where they don't smell you, because when you get into a food source area, even though they may be concentrating on the food, you've got to get high in the tree enough that you've got to get the wind in your favor. These deer have really been using this. I really expect to hunt a couple of afternoons here once the wind gets right. And until I hear the weatherman say we got a northeast wind, I'm not even coming to this field. So I think there's a couple of things that you really have to do in the early season now. This is not the transition period. This is a food source period. You got to find where they're at. You got to get your wind right. You got to go hunting.
With an inconsistent wind, David chooses another stand site overlooking a smaller food plot. Early that afternoon, David and cameraman Chuck Jones hear something coming to the opening. Now, what our hunters thought might be deer turned out to be a fall brood of turkeys. It's that magic time of the evening when several does come to the field. Now watch as these does look back to give away the location of a nice buck. The buck is out of range. Hopefully, some social grunts might bring him closer. While David watches this buck, a twig snaps to his right. His eyes turn to pick up a good buck sneaking in from behind. Deer are curious animals, and they'll sometimes respond to calls during the early season.
Boy, I got the shakes bad on that one and pulled off just a little bit. I think I see my hair laying down there. Tell you what, if that was a liver shot, which I think it was, it's gonna take a little time before we trail him. Yep, I can see my hair. I shot plumb through him. I would have liked to made a better lung shot on him than that, but I don't think there's any problem. Having gone plumb through him, he's gonna leave a pretty good trail. But I'm gonna give him about an hour before I go check on him. Maybe we'll find him before dark.
There he is, piled up right there. It must have been a good liver shot, even though it was a bad shot.
He's a good 125-inch deer with if he hadn't, because he's probably 21-inch spread, don't you think?
Yeah, that deer's, I know you're saying, I'm 19 inches to the crease of my elbow right there. That deer's 19 inches inside, unless I've grown a little bit.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm tickled with him.
Boy, you tore his liver up. That just, you know.
Well, he was quartering just enough that the air come in at this angle.
It came out. I think you may have gotten a piece of that lung coming out.
Well,
He didn't go 90 yards.
He didn't go near as far as I thought he was going to, and we were lucky to find him right here before dark, I promise you.
What a way to start the season. You did good. Let's walk up there and get the truck.
All right.
You gonna pull him out this road?
Yeah.
On the way to the stand the first afternoon at Cane Mount Plantation, Harold runs across several wild hogs. These critters are all over this part of Mississippi, and they make for some fine eating. Well, Harold has visions of grilled ribs and tenderloin, but these hogs have a different idea. Later that evening, Harold and David are settled into their concealed Trax America Grizz ladder stands. Ray Forrest has turned our team onto a great funnel area where an acorn ridge bottlenecks into a small food plot. This narrow ridge is loaded with acorns and lots of good buck sign. Cane Mount's extensive management program allows a hunter the opportunity to see lots of deer. At this time of the year, when buck sign just begins to show up, a grunt call can be more effective than at any other phase of the season. Bucks are experiencing a change in hormones, which makes them very callable.
yonder. I'm not sure. Yonder he is, right yonder.
Ain't that luck?
Well, I'm gonna tell you what, if it had brow tines, he'd hit 140, 145, but he may still make 125 yet.
I didn't hesitate on shooting him, I can tell you that.
No, if you had, I'd have knocked you out of that tree stand. That's great, son. That is a real good Mississippi buck.
That's exactly where I could see where I shot him. I just want to hit him in them lungs, you know what?
Well, you knocked air out of him. There's no doubt about that.
He only went about 100 yards, so. But he could have won 150 yards if he'd won.
If this log hadn't have stopped him, he'd have gone another 150 yards, stone dead.
Yeah.
Well, I'm proud of you. That's a great Mississippi buck. Is that your first Mississippi?
First Mississippi buck.
Well, I tell you what, old Ray John right here came out and is going to be proud of you. I promise you. I have not ever seen as many Pope and Young bucks as we've seen here, and you finally got an opportunity to shoot a good one, Harold. I'm proud of you. And I know Long is going to be tickled to death trying to help us pull this thing out of here.
He's going to be a lot tickled if he was. He's down to foot of that hill, I can tell you that.
Well, what do you say we try to get him out?
Sure did well. Proud of you.
I tell you what, you told me where to put that stand. Now you know I listened to you.
Congratulations.
Harold, it looks like you really did him. Yeah. Now see, me and old David pulled that thing out. We didn't want y'all to go there and have to do any hard work.
Well, I appreciate it. Didn't go all the way to the bottom of the hill, did it?
No, he didn't, thank goodness.
That's why you pulled it out for me.
If it'd been down there, y'all had to help.
That is a beautiful buck.
It's early archery season. Chuck and his video partner David Hale have picked a strategic stand location next to a water hole that borders a 4-acre clover spot. During the late hours, deer will visit this area for food and water, especially when dry conditions exist. A shift in the wind alerts this doe, and she leaves the field with her little ones. Two good bucks, one definitely a Pope and Young, show up during the last minutes of this hunt, but they never enter bow range. These two bandits are the only animals that come close to our hunters on this evening hunt. Chuck and David reposition their stands early the next morning for the afternoon hunt. About 4 o'clock, this small buck gives our team confidence in the new location. Now, here's what we're waiting for. These bucks are within 20 yards of yesterday's stand. But with today's wind, it would be impossible to hunt from those stands. With the breeze in their face, Chuck and David can only hope these deer will feed across the bottleneck area of the field, close to their position. Waiting for the right angle can oftentimes test a bow hunter. Some good advice in this situation would be not to look at the horns too much. Try to shift your attention to something else and wait on the correct shot. Then pick a small spot in the vitals and concentrate on hitting that area. Now, let's look at this ultimate whitetail tip.
Boy, these deer have really been using this mineral lick. You know, the single question most important in my mind that's asked me during the course of the year is what can I do to make bigger horns. I'm a trophy hunter. Well, everybody's a trophy hunter to some extent, but I want to make better genetics or better horns or whatever. First of all, you got to have the genetics to have good horns. But the second most important thing as far as that's concerned is nutrition. And when you talk about nutrition, we want to talk about food plots a little bit and what you can do to help yourself. But more importantly, we want to talk about a mineral lick. Now, a lot of folks say, hey, I'll put out a salt lick. And speaking of salt licks or mineral licks, make sure it's legal in your state. Some states it's not. But normally where we hunt and where we've got our food plots and where we've got our lands, we put out what we call mineral licks. Now, this particular lick right here was put out a year ago, and you can see it's already been a lot of movement around it. They've been in here eating this. I put a bag of this in here, and this was a 60-pound bag of Mega Bucks AGF. And the most important part about this particular stuff here is I've got something besides salt in it. When you're just putting salt down, you're actually sweetening the soil. And being that a deer is a ruminant, it's a 4-compartment digestive system, he has to have dirt to make his digestion work. So when you just put out salt, you'd have a great big old hole here, and all you've done is concentrate them where they're eating the dirt and going on about their business. You made the soil sweet for them. If you're going to go to that extent, why not put out something that can help the horns? Notice in this particular bag right here, you've got calcium, phosphorus, salt, magnesium, potassium, sulfur, selenium, all different kinds of vitamins. That's what it takes to make big horns. This is where you can really help your deer. You need to put it out and have it ready for them, available for them, somewhere between the last cold spell and the first warm spell. In this country here, it would be around February. So this is a year-old mineral lick right here. And all I've done is taken a bag of this and just dumped it on top of the ground. I didn't have to mix it with the dirt or any of that kind of stuff because the deer are coming after the ingredients that's in here, and that's what they're going to use. Now I'm going to pour this right in here. I'm going to freshen this one up. I'm going to pour this bag here right on top of the ground. And then I'm going to leave it just exactly like it is and let the rain and nature take its course. Now, I wouldn't put one of these any closer than, say, 300 to 400, maybe 500 yards apart, depending upon how much land that you have, because if you put these things too close, then you're going to have deer concentrating on the particular lick all the course of the woods, which is fine, except if you're using it for an attractant, then you don't want to put them too close together. Now, basically, I like to put them everywhere I've got a food plot. And speaking of food plots, a deer needs at least a 30% protein during the course of the year. And we put out a lot of clovers, more specifically white clover. But if you can put out alfalfa or any kind of a white clover, red clover is not as good as white, it's not as nutritious, and they don't like it as well. But let me tell you what putting out clover fields would do for you. It'll give you an opportunity during the course of the year to observe your animals. And I've seen times, especially in the summertime, when bucks group together in 3, 4, and 5, and they like to do that together before they separate into bachelor groups or separate as loners. You can visually come back to these different food plots and see these deer 4 and 5, 6 times during the year, and you can watch how their antlers mature and how they grow. So if you really want to help yourself and you really want trophy bucks, put down something that'll help them. Put down something that's got a lot of ingredients in it, not just a salt lick. I guarantee you, if you'll practice a few of these things, especially on your properties or even on somebody you got permission to hunt on, it'll help the antler growth on your deer. Now let's go back to some good whitetail hunting.
Laura Shepley of PSE is hunting with night and hail during the pre-rut phase of the season. Laura has high hopes of taking her first whitetail on this hunt. Her equipment is the PSE's new deer hunter in Realtree's gray all-purpose. She and videographer Chuck Jones have picked a stand site at a bottleneck area in a large cedar thicket. There's plenty of buck sign and lots of acorns in the area, and this cold, frosty morning has deer on the move. This small forkhorn does not seem to be paying any attention to that doe. This usually means a larger buck is close by. When the big buck runs the doe under the stand, Chuck bleats with his voice, hoping to stop the deer and give Laura a good shot. This startles the buck and he bounces out of range, but that hot doe is still close to the stand. Odds are he'll try to come back to the doe. Let's enjoy the action.
Did we?
Congratulations.
Thanks. He's a beauty, huh?
How do you feel about your first whitetail?
It was an exciting experience, I tell you.
Kind of nippy this morning, wasn't it?
It was freezing. It was freezing. I was amazed to see how much action, though.
This is a little thicker cover than you used to hunting elk hunting and stuff, isn't it?
I'm used to seeing, you know, at least 60 yards, if not. And they sure come in quiet. I was surprised. I thought with these leaves it would be a lot noisier watching them, you know, when they came in, but they just came in so quiet.
We hunted. What time did you shoot that deer? Did you have a watch on? Do you know?
No, I don't even know.
Probably 8:30 or 9 o'clock. We hunted maybe 2 hours.
Saw several small bucks, a doe. This deer was trailing along.
He
With
was.
pre-rut, he was trailing along behind those other deer. What is that, the deer hunter you were shooting?
Yep.
What you got it on, Laura?
60 pounds.
Well, you nailed
20
him,
yards.
girl.
We nailed him.
I had an absolute great time.
It was a ball. What do you?
Night and Hale's good friend and pro staffer Jim McConaughey, a Louisiana native, has been a dedicated archer for many years. Jim understands that bow hunting takes lots of time and patience, especially when you're after big whitetails. One morning during a 3-day bow hunt with the Night and Hale team, Jim had a nice 8-point chase these does within 45 yards of his stand. A shifting wind alerts the does, and this buck stops out of range. When deer are cautious like this, a hunter can only remain calm and hope for a closer shot. In this case, the ladies turn and walk away, taking our 8-pointer with them. After 2 more days of minimal deer movement, our hunters will change strategies. The new hunting tactics are to make some drives along fence rows and narrow thickets. It's late season, and deer will bunch up in thick areas around this farm country.
Hit him good, didn't you? Hit him good. Real good.
There's blood. There's more. He's right up through here. There he is. There he is. Oh, yeah. 9 point. He's nice. He is a nice buck. Look here, Jonesy.
Dad, burn, Mac. Son,
Right. 9
that is
point.
a gorgeous deer.
Nice 9 point, isn't it?
You had to come all the way to Kentucky for me to film you killing the first buck we ever killed on film.
Yeah.
As many days as we spent hunting it.
All our lives.
I'm gonna tell you what, that is a gorgeous
He
deer.
is fine,
He's gonna
isn't
scare Pope and Young.
Oh, yeah, I think he's right
Got
there.
good brow points,
He's right there on it.
and you made a perfect shot on him. You know, you were trying to stop him, and I was whistling. That's
I
a
heard
good
you
tip.
listen. It sure is. You know, you seldom have to shoot a walking deer or a running deer. They're hard enough to hit anyway.
You like these Kentucky fence rows?
I love them. I tell you what, when after the number of hours we've logged still hunting, when David mentioned making a drive today, we both kind of perked up. We wasn't looking forward to coming back out here, and the snow came.
That airplane and this snow.
I wouldn't want to be up. I'd rather be down here.
I guarantee you, I'm with you. You know, we hunted Hardwood Hills, still hunted, and had a nice 8 points you were going to shoot, and the does winded us, and we went back to the office, like you said today, when David said, hey, boys, y'all interested in getting in some fence rows and let us make some drives? Because these deer are yarded up here this time of year.
They are. And I mean, there's evidence by how many bucks that they pushed over.
What, 6 or 7 came through?
Yeah, at least 6. I mean, we'll have to review the film. I mean, really.
Man, it was great. That snow, it confuses these deer. You know, it was perfect, a perfect situation.
Exactly. That snow will cause them to be a little disillusioned. You know, we've done that in Nebraska before in the snow.
Well, Mac, I tell you what, that is such a fine deer. You know, this porter roof saved our life today, didn't it?
It did.
I'm going to let you take that back to Louisiana with you. You may need it in Nebraska.
We don't get a lot of the snow, but we get lots and lots of rain.
We better go round up our dogs. They were headed west, and it's getting dark. I'm sure they're going to need feeding and water.
I heard Harold barking over it.
That is a gorgeous animal.
Thank you.
Now let's learn more about deer hunting with this ultimate whitetail tip.
When you're deer hunting, you really need to know your equipment. When I mean equipment, I mean everything that you're going to use out there in the field of deer hunt, from your binoculars to your deer call to your shells. You know, we deer hunt with bows, we deer hunt with muzzle load, shotgun slug, and conventional rifles. I think one of the most important things was start with a bow here. You know, some of the things that I look at would be a good tip for you. I have people to ask me why you dressing up in camouflage, no fluorescent orange bow hunting, and you have an arrow that's white and red. And the answer to that is, you've got to know where you hit the animal. It's very important to know where you hit him, because that can tell you how long you need to wait before you retrieve him. All right, a bow, you need to know your pins. You need to practice with a bow and know what your yardage is. If you know the yardage, bow hunting is pretty simple. If just knowing your yardage, that's one of the most important things. If you got 5 pins on there, know which each pin and how far they shoot. All right, on a muzzle load, I think the most important thing on a muzzle load by far is keeping it clean. You know, you've got to practice and know where it shoots, but you have got to keep a muzzle load clean. In some of this video that you're going to see here, you see where that one of the hunters didn't keep his muzzle load clean, and it really will show off on you every time. You need to clean and keep it extremely clean. And when we rifle hunting, I think one of the most important thing is the ammunition. I shoot Winchester. I've shot it for years. I've got confidence in Winchester. I think that's very important. Another thing is really important is your optics. I use that light sticker Pentec scope, which I really like because it gives you that extra 5 minutes in the afternoon and morning that you can see. And I always take to the woods with me 2 things. One of them is a little pair of Pentec binoculars like this, because I can put it in my shirt pocket or put it in my coat pocket. Another thing is, I'll take this deer call right here, and I never go without them. You know, this year the deer seem to be in the woods a lot, eating acorns. And I tell you what, it gave me a chance to use a deer call a lot, and I got to hear a lot of sounds this year that a deer made, and they're all right here in this little call. And on this video here, you're gonna see a lot of the sounds and hear a lot of the sounds these deer make that I didn't even know they made. All right, one thing I like about this deer call here versus any other deer call is it's this extender hose right here. It gives you the opportunity to make sound that's low and high, which is very important. When the wind's blowing, you need a louder sound. When the acoustics are real still, you need a low sound like this. And days you need to get it out loud like. You're gonna hear these whitetail deer make these sounds all through this video. I guarantee if you'll use this deer call along with these other fine products, it'll make you a better deer hunter. Now let's look at some more good deer hunting.
Kentucky pro staffer Ryan Colbert and Chuck are way down south at one of Mississippi's finer places to be, Cane Mount Plantation. As you can see, this young fellow's posture signals romance is in the air for the white-tailed deer. It's muzzleloader time in Mississippi, and Ryan is sitting comfortably in his Grizz ladder stand from Trax America. His weapon of choice is CVA's Apollo inline muzzleloader. Oh, and we always have Pentax glasses around our necks. These beautiful hills are torn up with rubs and scrapes. Yes, the bucks are on the prowl. It's early December, which is the first part of the rut. This phase is actually called the pre-rut. Bucks will respond to calling during this part of the season better than at any other time. When a hot doe is in the area, many times several bucks will be chasing her. Occasional grunting can easily lure one of those big boys right in. Scopes are not legal on muzzle loaders here. At 70 yards, this is a marginal shot. And before Ryan can find an opening, this show is over. These guys don't get by being dumb. I know it's hard to believe, but only 5 minutes later, another huge buck is coming in. It's a damp, humid morning, one of those days when you can hardly keep your gun dry.
Shooting.
The valuable lesson that Ryan learned is when hunting with a muzzleloader in the rain, at the end of the day, fire your weapon, clean it, and fire several caps through it before reloading. This will make sure your powder is dry. As a matter of fact, it never hurts to shoot your gun at the end of each day, regardless of weather conditions. Well, after a quick lunch and a real thorough cleaning of his muzzleloader, Ryan is back on the stand and bucks are still moving. Let's enjoy the afternoon. It's late afternoon before Ryan gets another opportunity when a real nice buck sneaks in from behind and comes directly to a big scrape. When everything comes together, there's nothing better than whitetail hunting with a muzzleloader.
Ryan, is that your first Mississippi buck?
Yes, that's the first Mississippi buck.
Well, that's a pretty dadgum good start.
It's a pretty good start, the last minute of the hunt.
If it hadn't been so rainy yesterday, I think we'd done a little bit better. Of course, that 6-point, he was an impressive looking deer.
Really nice deer.
But golly, this was 5 minutes left in the hunt. You'd already pulled your head net off and just sitting there, and this doe comes charging down the road, and he comes in behind. Man, I'm gonna tell you what. He's gonna come back here next year?
Definitely. I've already booked my hunt.
I'll be with you, man. That was a super hunt.
He's got some good mass on him.
That's pretty bad.
Well, Chick, Harold and I have got a real selfish motive for having you down here. We want to learn all we can learn about going slug hunting.
Well, we're going to open slug school.
I can tell you one thing, Chick. You came at the perfect time. The deer in full rut right now, and you should see some action tomorrow.
Sounds good to me.
Well, now listen, y'all just got through shooting that gun after you got off the airplane, and I know how they beat and bang them around.
Yep.
Is it on, and how far can you shoot?
Yep, it's right on, and I feel pretty comfortable going out to over 100 yards, 110 yards maybe.
Well, I hope you won't have to shoot that far, but you know what? Now, I don't know what kind of stand you normally use, but being a pretty good-sized fella and having known you for several years, this is always a concern for us when we put people in stands, is if are they going to be able to hand it, or they're scared. Trax America gave us a penthouse stand, so you're going to be in the penthouse tomorrow, and I promise you, it is exactly what it says it is. This is a great place.
Chick, talking to you a while ago, you said you had a new gun you come out with, slug hunt with, and it's a bolt action. I think that's a heck of an idea, because most people use bolt action rifles to deer hunt with, and that's going to be right in line with your rifle.
People are really comfortable with a bolt action. This is a gun that's really built as a slug shooter. It's ported to help you handle some of the recoil off a 3-inch slug.
Place which you mount the scope on.
Absolutely drilled and tapped, ready to scope, just like any normal centerfire gun.
Opening day of the Kentucky gun season usually falls right in line with the rut. A whitetail buck's hormones will not allow him to rest during this period. He's constantly on the move, looking for willing does. Any hunter knows luck is much better than skill. Chick must have a good combination of both. Before sunrise, he has several deer in sight. Letting this first-year buck go and being downwind of those does is a perfect scenario. Luck is definitely on our hunter's side. 10 minutes later, a nice buck follows the trail of those does right past the stand.
You did go, didn't you?
Great shot. Well, Chick, how long you been in Kentucky now? 6 hours? 8 hours?
6 hours.
You got in at like midnight last night. You know, I'd rather hunt with a guy that's got good luck and skill any day. There's no doubt that you got good luck. The sun hadn't even come up and this deer just walked out across here. That was a fabulous hunt.
Hit him again.
The famed Covenant Ranch in deep South Texas is the setting for our next hunt. Let's join David and ranch manager Joe Lee as they discuss rattling techniques.
It's been an enjoyable experience. We got a couple of days left. I know we're going to rattle up some more bucks, and that is probably the most exciting part about this, whether we kill anything or not. And one of the things about this country right here, when you look behind us here with all these paraflats, you got to get to a point where you can see if you're going to rattle and try to film at the same time. And that's been a little difficult job for us, hasn't it?
Yes, sir. It has been difficult, but we're doing pretty good so far.
You're doing pretty good. You pulled several rabbits out of the hat. I know you got 1 or 2 more in there. What do you say we go try to find us another rabbit?
All right.
This brush country is loaded with whitetails, so David and Harold have high hopes of calling a big buck into gun range. Atsko's no odor has completely masked our hunter's scent, allowing these deer to be called close.
Well, I'm about ready to move. You done good, son. We called up 4 or 5 bucks right there.
Yes, sir. You see a little scrape of it?
Yeah. What do you say we
You see anything worth today?
No. Everything's about 110 or 15 inches.
That's what it looked like to me, too.
What do you say we head on up about a quarter of a mile?
Even though warm, humid weather has got the real big bucks holed up, you can bet Harold and David have had a great hunt, although they elected to pass on these nice bucks. Odds are they'll return next year for more deer calling action. Now let's look at this ultimate whitetail tip.
When you're archery hunting, there's a lot of things that can really make the difference in your hunt being successful or unsuccessful. As you can see, I'm sitting in a climbing stand. This is a Silent Hawk mag from Trax America. I like to get on a big tree. This is late season. There's not a lot of foliage in the woods. There's several pieces of equipment though that can really make a difference in your hunting. One thing is these ratchet cutters that I use. When I get up here, I can lean out and prune anything out of my way. It's a good idea just to hang a limb like that. You don't want to take all the cover down from in front of you. I always carry a pair of glasses with me. It's one reason I like a stand like this. I've got the back of the stand, the limbs to hang stuff on. These glasses are Pentax 8x42. They're a good all-around size optic to use. You can look out there and judge an animal's class. You can see openings. You can see whether he's got does with them. Another reason I favor a climbing stand, the arms on the back of this stand, I can keep my bow readily available right there. I've got a little quick lock on my bow. I'm going to leave it hanging out of the way during the hunt where I can just sit comfortably and watch, and when I see an animal coming, it makes it easy just to reach around, keep my eye on that animal, and ease the bow around to get ready for the shot. Deer calling is very, very important. I never, ever go to the woods without a grunt call in my hand. This is the Easy Grunter Plus. It's got an inhale, exhale concept to it. This is a tremendous call. It's the most realistic sounding deer call on the market. The inhale, exhale concept of this call allows you to blow the call on either end. You can suck on this end, blow on this end, or blow on this end, and you get 3 or 4 different tones of deer sounds. I'm exhaling there, I'll inhale. Little softer bleat type grunt that sounds like a doe. Then I turn it around, and sometimes I even pinch this hose down to really muffle the sound. The advantage of this hose is being able to move it around. If a deer's coming like this, you can turn it around behind you and grunt, and all of a sudden he's looking over here and he's not focused in on exactly where that deer calling's coming from. Another reason I favor a climbing stand, I can use the tree to hide myself. I like to set up with the wind in my face. If I'm expecting deer to come from this way, I can tuck in behind this tree. Of course, I always wear a head net or face paint, but when an animal's coming, let him go behind a tree, get drawn, and make your shot. Coming up, we've got an exciting deer calling segment with Rob Keck of the National Wild Turkey Federation, pre-season calling. Plus, we were both covered up with No Odor, a product that the Night and Hail team uses religiously to cover our scent. After that, we've got live deer grunts, actual grunts of bucks chasing does. Y'all listen to those sounds and compare it to your calling. I think it'll help you.
If you've ever wondered about the success of deer calling, then take a gander at this calling segment with our good friend Rob Keck. Now let's listen to some actual deer grunts. A dedicated archer and good friend, Dick Tillman, does what it takes to try and harvest big whitetail bucks. Dick and his cameraman, Chuck Jones, found a single white oak tree right smack in the middle of a huge thicket. During the pre-rut phase of the season when does visit this area, bucks will be close by. Dick's experience and patience has allowed him to pass some nice bucks like this beautiful 8-point, but he's hoping for a Pope and Young class whitetail. Several hours later, the big bruiser follows some does to the food source. Getting a good shot in a thick area like this can sometimes present a problem. Let's see what happens. At 12 yards, this big 9-point only has to turn left or right for a perfect broadside shot. Listen closely, and you'll hear a doe stomp her foot and snort when the wind shifts and gives our hunters away. This big buck didn't get too spooked. He sized up the situation and quickly returned to his thick cover. It's easy to see how these animals grow old. Several hours later, Dick spots a deer slipping through the thicket. This time of the year, a grunt call can be as important as your weapon. Let's watch as the Easy Grunter Plus proves this point.
Oh, I hit him. I can't tell where I hit him. I shot there a bunch of crap.
You hit him in the shoulder.
Yeah.
You hit him behind the shoulder.
I was squatting down and shooting through all this, but he was going to go. He got spooky.
Man, that's a good deer.
I know it is. Shit, I can't breathe now. I was just squatting. Here's the air. That's the blood. Look at the blood. I think that must have hit right behind his shoulder. Probably got a lung and come up into the throat area, maybe. And boy, there's a lot of good blood. He's probably down over here.
Let's get up there and take a look at that one.
I'm gonna have to bleed this. Chocolate. He's got a bunch of little kickers, both sides. That's a pretty ray. Not much brow tine, but he's pretty. He just laid down here on all fours.
Here are some top-notch whitetail hunting spots the Night and Hail team recommend.
It was a great season. We learned a lot. And one thing we found out for sure, when you got plenty of acorns, you're not going to see a lot of deer.
You know what, I got tired of deer hunting this year. I'm going to tell you something. We started in September and went off to January and knocked us out a lot of good waterfowl hunting, but we got to do some waterfowl hunting and a lot of good quail hunting. It knocked us out of, but you know, you have to really get in there to hunt 100 days in a deer stand.
Yeah, especially when you're hanging 2 stands every time,
Yeah.
about 60 pounds of camera gear. It makes it a little different, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. And you know what? We had a great season. We capped it off with a great 9 hunts, successful. But we got a new season coming up right now. We're fixing to get right into turkey season. We're fixing to make our 3rd volume of the Ultimate Spring. Tell us a little bit, Chuck, real quick, about what videos we have got coming up.
Well, like you said, we're always going to do a deer and turkey video annually. And this year we're looking at doing a waterfowl in the Ultimate Series and an elk. We've got 90% of our elk done. We're going to travel out west again to try to do some archery stuff, but I think everything's going to come together well.
Well, folks, I'd like to take this time to thank you for your support. Until we see you again on the next Ultimate Series, have a successful and safe time in the woods.